Thank you, Ann. My name is Mike Menefee. I'm the program manager for the Office of Charitable and Regulatory Programs. Charitable gaming is one of several programs that we oversee within the Office of Charitable and Regulatory Programs, but it's a significant portion of what we do. Just to kind of give everyone an overview specifically as it relates to gambling in Virginia. Gambling, if you are not already aware, is illegal in the Commonwealth of Virginia pursuant to 18.2-325 of the code. There's only a few exceptions to that illegal gambling statutes. Those are the casinos, the lotteries, sports wagering, pari-mutuel wagering, which also includes historical racing machines, and charitable gaming. And so other than that, gambling is illegal in Virginia. Now, what I want to specifically focus on is charitable gaming, which is what we oversee. Now, charitable gaming has been around in Virginia since about 1973 legally. State did not take oversight of charitable gaming until about 96. And my involvement in charitable gaming probably predates about 2001. So I've been involved with this industry for a while. To just kind of give you a breakdown, what is charitable gaming? Essentially a form of fundraising for a charity to raise funds for their charitable activities. These fundraising activities include bingo, instant bingo, pull tabs and seal cards, and raffles. Now, they are subject to routine inspections by our office, and certain organizations are subject to audit and financial review by our office. Now, to kind of give you an idea, this is typically going to be a surprise to most people. What is reported to us right now, which is typically the bingo sessions. Now, you can see that typically bingo specifically, at least charitable gaming has been bouncing around about 275 million. About 2020, during the pandemic, it obviously dropped to about 135 million. But since this year, it's been steadily increased. We won't get the final figures for 2021 until probably early part of next year. But this just gives you kind of an idea of how much money is just gross in charitable gaming alone with regards to what is reported to us. Now, getting a further breakdown, you'll see that the predominantly what is reported to us in terms of the state is that bingo sessions probably make most of this up in terms of a large chunk of it. Raffle sales have been hovering around about $6 to $8 to $10 million, depending on what goes on. So it's not a huge function, at least regards to the raffle activities, than it is bingo. And just recently, which I'll get into a little bit later, the General Assembly has authorized us to start permitting private social quarters. Again, I'll get into that. So these numbers are going to dramatically change later on. But up until recently, we only permitted raffles and we only permitted bingo activities. There was another form of charitable gaming activities. Again, the private social quarters when it comes to pull tab sales, which were not permitted by our office and hasn't been for a while based off of an exemption. But again, this is just what's been reported to us. Now, kind of getting into exactly the sales of bingo sessions, you'll see again the gross sales and just what the player count is. And so you can see the steady decline of players over the years. Back in about 2011, we had about 2.7 million players. And about 2019, before the pandemic really took effect, we're about down to 1.6 million. Again, the player counts are not audited by our office, but these are just simply figures that are reported to the organization or by the organization to us. And specifically, and these numbers are probably somewhat skewed to a certain degree, because if you are a regular customer and you showing up again, you may end up being in this count multiple times. So if you end up showing at a bingo game one time a week, you're probably going to show up at least 52 times in this number. So again, just kind of give you a barometer of it. But regardless of how the numbers are factored in or calculated, you can see the steady decline of players in general, going about 2.7 million down to 1.6 million. Now, for those that have never been into a bingo hall before, this is what a bingo hall looks like. Specifically, you'll see in the top part of the image, that's a flashboard. And right below that flashboard is what's called a calling station. And you will have a bingo caller sitting there, calling numbers coming out of what we call a hopper, which is the apparatus where the bingo balls are bouncing around and are selected. And so once the bingo ball comes up, the bingo caller will announce it and then put it in a slot, which will then at that point light it up on the flashboard. And then the bingo players will obviously daub their bingo paper, etc. And this can go on for hours. If you ever been in a bingo hall, then you'll know that it's very quiet. I think it's quieter than the library. You will not hear anyone talk. Everyone's very focused on their bingo cards and obviously paying attention to the numbers that are being called. But that's what a bingo hall looks like. And then moving along, kind of a breakdown of the actual sales in a bingo session, as we like to call it. You'll see bingo paper sales, and those are the actual hard paper that you take a dauber and you daub the paper on. You'll see the steady decline over the years of just bingo sales, period. I mean, in 2001, you're roughly about 85 million. And then even, again, 2019, pre-pandemic, I mean, it was about 60 million. So you were looking at about a $25 million drop just in paper sales alone. Electronic bingo, which I'll get into a little bit more, but that's electronic facsimile of a bingo game or bingo paper. And you'll see those sales pretty much staying steady between 2011 and 2019. Raffle sales, you'll actually will have raffle sales in as part of a bingo session. Those have been pretty steady. And you will also, on a side note, also will have outside raffles that are not part of the bingo session. But then what I really want to point out to you is the pull tab sales. And you'll see the pull tab sales. In some cases, if you do a linear chart or a linear line on this chart, you'll see it as steadily increasing over the years between 2011 and 2019. And that is where the bulk of the sales that occur during a bingo session will occur. Now, there's different profit margins to really get into the nitty-gritty details of it all. And the bingo paper, and part of the explanation why bingo paper sales are dropping, is depending on it, on how the organization has structured its game. Bingo typically has an 85% payout. So there's about, minus other costs associated with the play of actual bingo, you got about a 15% profit margin. When you get to pull tab sales, at least the paper version of it all, it's about a 75% payout. So you have about 25% profit margin, not factoring the cost of the actual deal of electronic or a deal of paper pull tabs. But again, this kind of gives you an idea where the bulk of the sales are and what's actually going on in a part of the bingo session. Getting back to the bingo session itself, this is a typical setup of a player playing bingo. You'll see right in front of you with the kind of the checkered paper, that is the actual bingo paper. Right to the right of it is what we call a game program. That is a list of all the games that are being played at that particular location at that particular time. Right above that game program was a whole bunch of daubers. Those are used to daub the bingo paper. And then kind of not in the middle of it, you'll see, I guess they have an elephant. That's their lucky charm. But you'll see in the right next to the dauber and even next to the other device, those two devices, actually the device next to the cup, as well as the daubers, those are electronic bingo devices, which we'll get into a little bit later. Those is an electronic facsimile of the paper bingo. And in case you're wondering what's to the far left, that's called a dauber bag. And that's where you put all your daubers and all your lucky charms in it, and etc. Again, to give you a little bit closer look at what a bingo paper looks like. This is what a bingo paper looks like. It comes in all different shapes and sizes. It will come in as a single sheet. It will come into a pack, which is pretty much multiple sheets glued together. It will come in all different colors and etc. But bingo paper will run, it has typically 5 columns, 1 through 75. They're completely random. I won't get into all the mechanicalness or the different security features of the bingo paper, but all this bingo paper has to meet certain security protocols. It has to meet certain construction standards per our regulations. And we look at those to make sure at the end of the day that they are being constructed properly in order to maintain security as well as integrity of charitable gaming in Virginia. Now, some tidbits of information regarding bingo paper in general. There is no restriction of how much bingo paper a player may purchase at a bingo session, so they can buy as much as they want. Typically, that's somewhat self-contained because, again, if you have to be able to daub all the bingo paper that you have. So it's somewhat limited based off the player's skill capability. And believe it or not, a lot of these players are very skilled. I try to play bingo, and they play bingo just as for training purposes. And you really have to be able to scan the paper quickly, know where your numbers are, daub it quickly, and go on to the next one. Because a lot of these games are very fast. And so I give a lot of credit to the bingo players to be able to scan that paper very quickly, all the different cards there are, and be able to daub it properly at the end of the day. The other thing I kind of want to point out to you, this is not well known to anyone outside of charitable gaming, but a child can accompany a parent or legal guardian to play bingo. So there's no age restriction on the play of bingo in Virginia, but they have to be accompanied by a parent or legal guardian. That comes to a surprise to a lot of folks, but that is the rule in Virginia. Now, that doesn't stop an organization from further restricting that through we call house rules. And house rules are simply rules governing that particular organization and the conduct of their particular bingo session. So you'll see there's probably very few that even allow kids into the bingo halls at all. And not necessarily it's because of the fact that they don't believe that children should be near gambling. It's because they don't want to be a babysitting service and having kids running around, especially the fact that it's very quiet as the numbers are being called, and folks are very attentive to that. But a lot of organizations, probably I will ballpark about 90% of it, do not let children at all in the bingo halls for that reason, but they certainly can. There are different types of bingo games, believe it or not. So bingo can get even broken down. You have what's called jackpot games, which are prizes that are more than $100. Jackpot prizes can go up to about $1,000. You have what's called regular bingo. Those are typically up and down bingo. That's diagonal bingo. You can have a coverall, which a coverall is simply an entire bingo card that's completely daubed for that matter. Those prizes, depending on what it is, can be up to $100 or even $200. Network bingo is the prizes cannot exceed $25,000. What I will say about network bingo is that though legal in Virginia, it is not materialized in Virginia. That law got passed a couple of years ago. We have never had anyone offer network bingo, but what network bingo is, it allows various different organizations throughout the Commonwealth to be able to connect with each other electronically to play a single bingo together. And you pull all the sales together to come up with one gigantic prize at the end of the day. It's almost like a bingo form of lottery, where you're pulling all the money together from the various different locations for one single prize. But it's never gone off the ground in Virginia, but certainly it's on the books at this point. And a progressive prize, which is simply a bingo game, but the prize, a certain amount of money gets earmarked to this progressive game over time, whether a month, week, depending on it, until it's hit. That prize can get up to about $100,000. So in some cases in bingo, it can be a very small amount of money, but then again, it could be a significant amount of money that's being won. Now, what I really want to get into is electronic bingo devices. Again, this is electronic facsimile of bingo paper. And what you'll see here, and this is just one of several models that can be deployed in Virginia, but you'll see at the bottom part of that particular device, it's almost a electronic facsimile of a flashcard. But what will happen is that as the bingo caller is calling the numbers, they'll put it into a slot on the calling station, and then that triggers what's Wi-Fi communication to these devices, and it sends out a signal out to these particular devices. And so you'll see at the bottom right where it says I-22, that is the device receiving that electronic communication, indicating to the player exactly what number is going to be called. Now, the catch here is the bingo caller's got to actually put the right ball in the right slot. Certainly, if that's not the case, it's going to cause problems. But what I really want to show you, there's really three ways to mark your card in electronic format, right? The first one is what we call manual entry. And manual entry, you'll see in a lot of these devices, not in this particular one, in other devices, you'll have what they'll have, actually, you have to plug in the number, okay? So you plug in the number, so B5 calls, you hit the number 5, and it will dob all your bingo cards that are in the device. The next type of entry is called manual verification that we have, and that what happens with manual verification, I-22 will come up on your electronic bingo device, and you will just hit a confirm button or verify button, and then because you're verifying it, right? And then it will dob all your cards. The next one, which is a more recent feature, is called Autodop. Autodop has completely changed how electronic bingo devices are played. And what Autodop does is that it does not require the player to interact at all with the electronic bingo device. So the communication goes out from the calling station over the Wi-Fi communication to these devices, and the device in and itself, without any sort of interaction from the player, will automatically dob all the bingo cards that have that number. And so if you get into it, these devices are pre-programmed exactly what cards are being played for. For example, this one is you're looking for a diagonal. So the device already knows what predetermined pattern it's looking for. And once it achieves on any of the cards that are in the device, it will alert the player that bingo that the player has bingo, and the player will have to then at that point declare bingo. All right. Now, by regulations, each device can only have 54 cards per device. Okay. Now, in some other states, it's unlimited, but in Virginia, per the regulations, it's limited to 54 cards per device. And there's various different reasons for that, which I won't get into, but there is a limit. Now, having said that, there's no restrictions on the number of electronic bingo devices that the player can purchase. So the player can, in this case, purchase multiple electronic bingo devices. And certainly we have Autodop. They theoretically can have 3 or 4 devices at any given time in a play. Now, where this is going at the end of the day, you're seeing a slow transition away from the paper bingo to more electronic bingo devices and new ways of playing bingo. And you're starting to see that trend more and more now. And I think more recently, even this year, we're seeing more and more trends, because now we're seeing trends moving out what we will more or less call traditional bingo halls to more bars and restaurants now. And that is exposing bingo to different clienteles and expanding more of a footprint in Virginia than what it has traditionally been done. And I think you will end up seeing different forms of electronic bingo devices making their way into that. But that's where the trend's going. Paper pull tabs, again, those are like lottery tickets without the scratch film on it. You just pop open the windows and reveal whether or not you're a winner or not. And those have been traditionally the bulk of the sales in Virginia, but I'll get into electronic pull tabs, which is really probably a lot more fascinating to everybody. But in Virginia, it does restrict those that can play paper pull tabs. It's 18 years or older. So you can certainly play bingo with a parent legal guardian, but you cannot play, redeem, or even handle the paper pull tabs. There's no restrictions on the cost of the ticket. There's not a cap, but typically the ticket price for paper pull tabs is about $1 a piece. The single price for a paper pull tab is about $2,000, but there is what's called a progressive price feature to that. Again, those are tickets sold over a multiple period of time, and a certain percentage of it goes to the pot, and then that pot, it gets added to that pot, but that pot can exceed about 100,000. Now, getting into electronic pull tabs, which has been really a topic of discussion. Back in about 2007, the General Assembly authorized electronic versions of electronic pull tabs. Those did not get actually deployed until about November 2012, when the regulatory framework was actually developed and put into place. And Virginia was one of the first states ever to have electronic pull tabs. So we essentially built the regulatory structure from the ground up. And a lot of other states have gone in electronic pull tabs, has actually used our framework as their basis to generate and create their own. But the bulk of the pull tabs can be played in what we call private social quarters. For those are part of like a typical Moose, Eagles, Elks, American Legion, or VFW. They have typically private social quarters. That's where these devices can be played, or even the paper versions of it can be played, or they can be part of a bingo session as well. But predominantly these devices are in private social quarters for a variety of different reasons. Just to kind of give you an idea, these are different than slot machines. The fundamental difference with electronic pull tab, there's a finite number of electronic tickets, unlike a slot machine, which is infinite. Each deal of electronic pull tabs is capped at 25,000 tickets per deal, electronic deal. And there's a set amount of prizes for it, set number of winners for it, and so forth. When you get in slot machines, it's all based off how often those devices are played, and etc. And there's no definitives with slot machines, but these are fundamentally different because there's a start and an end. There's a specific number of players, specific number of cash in it, and etc. It's a lot easier to audit against at the end of the day. But for electronic pull tabs, there's no rolling, flashing, spinning, any of that, because it's not supposed to be a slot machine or even mimic a slot machine. We review all those graphics internally to make sure they're meeting those regulatory requirements, and all those graphics have to be reviewed before they're even approved or even allowed to play those games in the field. All the hardware, all the software has to be tested by an independent testing laboratory. We recognize 3 in Virginia: BMM Test Lab out of Las Vegas, Eclipse out of Cleveland, and GLI, which is based out of New Jersey. And what that simply means is that we have set technical requirements for the hardware and the software for security purposes and so forth. They have to go to the independent testing laboratory. That gets reviewed, and then they test it to make sure it meets the technical requirements, and then lets us know whether or not it meets it or not. Once we get that test report, we look at it, we review it, and then we'll make a decision whether to approve it or not. But the neat thing with the test reports is that it gives us signatures exactly of all the various different software in that device. So if we ever have to go back and verify to make sure the software has not been verified, we go in there and we can run a specialized software to that to make sure that the software has not been altered, changed in any way. Now, you may be asking what an electronic pull tab looks like. It comes in all different shapes and sizes. Most of you probably look like it says, well, it looks like a slot machine. Well, it certainly may look like a slot machine, but it's not a slot machine. So you actually have to get into the guts of the machine to determine exactly what you're looking at and what you're dealing with. But again, it's not what the box looks like on the outside. It's what's the software that's running. And then this is just an example, at least a still image of what a pull tab looks like. You just run your finger across it. It will open all the tabs, almost like a paper pull tab, and it will show you, it will reveal to you exactly what the winning symbols are. And then want to show you to is the actual play of it. This is the actual game. If I can get that running real quick. You'll see it will kind of conceal what the ticket looks like, and then the player interacts it and shows the winner and allows you to know what your winnings are at that point. And then you go on the next ticket, you play it, and then reveals it. So that is what electronic pull tab is. You see there's no flashing, no rolling, none of that. Fundamentally different than a typical slot machine at it. But this is what a electronic pull tab is. Moving right along. Now, what I also want to kind of let you know is that the manufacturers are looking to add new features to electronic pull tab devices or in order to increase sales, which is may impact the play of these devices. The things that have been discussed by the manufacturers are auto play of electronic tickets, almost like Autodop. So the player doesn't even these are not out in the field, but these are being discussed by the industry. But autoplay, if it goes out in the field, will allow the player not to even really interact with the system, allow them to purchase many tickets as they want, and obviously the system will just reveal it for them. Bulk ticking has been discussed, and what that allows you to do is right now they're required to buy one ticket at a time, and certainly the bulk ticket feature, if that ever gets deployed, what will allow them to do is buy 25 tickets at a time, 50 tickets at a time, 100 tickets at a time. And then if they have autoplay feature tied into that, then they will reveal those tickets one at a time after that bulk buy. And they just watch the device. There's also been discussion to allow a lot of these devices to be a combo device where you have the electronic bingo device as well as electronic pull tab device all contained in one device. Real quick too, you'll see back when, again, we deployed about in November 2012. So 2013 is probably real hard numbers. First numbers, you see it 107 million. In 2013, pandemic came effect about 2020, but in 2021, and this is figures up until October 31st of this year, we're already at $1.1 billion in gross sales. Okay. And this incorporates all the devices in the private social quarters as well as the bingo sessions. And you can see why the General Assembly has now authorized us to go back into private social quarters and start regulating and permitting all these devices, because we're at 1.1 billion and we still got 2 more months left in this, and we're projecting about 1.4 billion by the end of this year. And then you'll see again, Senate Bill 1127, which is what really got us back into private social quarters where the bulk of these machines are. We're starting to permit these now. We're providing regulatory oversights. And then getting into other effects of Senate Bill 1127, it redefined the types of organization eligible to obtain a charitable gaming permit. The key thing is that all bingo sessions are now required to get a permit from us conducting bingo. Before this, organizations were, if they gross less than $40,000, did not have to get a permit for us. If that's, and now they have to get a permit for us if they're conducting bingo at all. And so now we're fighting a whole bunch of bingo games that we never had to deal with before. Now we have to deal with them. But raffles are still exempting from the licensing requirement if they gross less than $40,000. But if they gross more than $40,000, you have to get a permit from us. Now, what I do want to bring to your attention about in terms of raffles is all paper right now. So it has to be hard tickets. It has to be physical tickets that are being sold. But we're getting a lot of interest from a lot of people for electronic raffles. And that's going to really fundamentally change what we do with raffles if that ever comes to fruition. But that will require an act by the General Assembly to do that. But you see a huge transition, at least for us, moving from more paper into more electronics than we have ever had before.
Thank you, Michael. We'll go ahead and move right into John Hagerty with the Virginia Lottery.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I'm honored to be here with you, and I'm going to take a moment here and try and get situated. All right. Well, again, I'm happy to be and honored to be working with all of you today, and hope that I give you something to think about. We're going to be looking at, first of all, a little bit of lottery, just the basics of the lottery. Also, the Lotteries Play Responsibly campaign. Going to talk about sports betting, casinos, and the voluntary exclusion program. But first, I'll start talking about the lottery because that's who I work for. The lottery has been around for more than 33 years. So if you've been in Virginia for any length of time, you've probably seen those crossed fingers logos. Now, the lottery doesn't sell its own tickets directly. Tickets are sold by businesses like convenience stores and grocery stores all across the Commonwealth. And we'll start with a little bit of history here. As you know, the first permanent English colony in America was here in Virginia, in Jamestown. But you might not know that during its earliest and most difficult years, Jamestown was financed in part by a lottery. The Great Virginia Lottery ran for 3 years, beginning in 1612, and then for another 3 years, beginning in 1618. Of course, the tickets were sold in England, not here in Virginia, which was all wilderness at the time. Virginia has great universities and colleges like UVA and William and Mary, both of which were built with the help of lotteries. So were other great schools across the nation. Lotteries raised funds for the colonial army in the Revolutionary War. Hospitals, bridges, and other public facilities were often funded by lotteries well into the 19th century. And the reason is this was a common means of raising funds for public projects before income taxes existed. In fact, towards the end of his life, Thomas Jefferson petitioned the General Assembly to allow him to hold a lottery to pay off his debts. So this was a common way to raise funds, but later during the 19th century, lotteries went out of favor because they were run with little oversight. And towards the end of the 19th century, lotteries were in fact banned. So that's why today lotteries are government-run agencies with strict rules and oversight, as well as security protocols to make sure the games are run fairly and honestly. Now, in 1987, some of you may remember it, Virginians were asked in a statewide referendum if they wanted a lottery, and the majority of voters said yes. That was the beginning of the Virginia lottery. The first ticket was sold a little less than a year later, on September 20th, 1988. And at that time, there was just one game. It was a scratcher game called Match 3. Now, this has grown and evolved so that today there are a number of different types of lottery games. Now, in today's lottery world, it generally boils down to two different types of games. You have instant games, in which players can immediately find out if they've won or lost, and draw games, in which you buy a ticket and wait for some future event like a drawing. And only after the drawing does the player know if they've won. Now, there are a lot of variations on that, but those are the two basic types of lottery games. Now, drawing games, those are the ones that get the headlines, like Powerball, Mega Millions. These are multi-state games, meaning that tickets for every drawing are sold not just in Virginia, but across the nation. And jackpots can grow to enormous amounts, and it makes news. These are the high-profile marquee games. So it may surprise you to know that in Virginia, scratcher games are by far the largest part of the lottery sales. And last year, that accounted for more than $1.3 billion in sales of scratcher tickets alone. And in 2020, the Virginia Lottery began selling certain games online. Now, that means people can play the lottery on their phone or other device. Online play began on July 1st. And before that, state law did not permit it. Now, online sales were very successful right off the bat. And in the first full year, the lottery sold nearly $800 million in online plays. Now, you need to be physically located in Virginia, at least 18 years of age or older. And there are other safeguards for consumers built into online play, like bet limits, deposit limits. A person can self-exclude from online play. And before I move away from lottery games, I want to briefly touch on odds. Odds are a mathematical computation of the chances a person has of getting a specific result. And the odds of winning are printed on every Virginia lottery ticket for that particular game. And occasionally we hear from someone who the odds in a certain game were 1 in 4, let's say, bought 4 tickets thinking that they're guaranteed that one will be a winner. And of course, that's not how odds work. So let me give you an example. In the pick 3 game, a 3-digit combination of numbers is drawn. So the winning combination will be somewhere between 000 all the way up to 999. That means there are exactly 1,000 possible winning combinations, which means the odds of matching all 3 numbers are 1 in 1,000. It doesn't matter how many people buy tickets for that drawing. You're not competing against other lottery players. Now, I don't want to go too deeply into odds, but it's important to understand, especially when we talk about problem gambling, as we will in a few moments. Now, all Virginia lottery profits go to K through 12 education in Virginia. This is required by law. It's part of the state constitution. And in an amendment approved by Virginia voters in the year 2000, that's how it came to be part of the state constitution. Now, what do we mean by profits? Well, let me illustrate with $1. Now, for each dollar spent playing the Virginia lottery, roughly 60 cents goes to prizes. You can't have a lottery without prizes, obviously, and no one would play. So about 60 cents goes back to players. Now, by the way, these are all approximate numbers. About 6 cents goes to the store that sold you the ticket. About 5 cents goes to the cost of running the lottery, the machines, printing tickets, advertising, salaries. It's important because the lottery doesn't receive any tax dollars. The lottery runs entirely off of the revenue from lottery games. So, in that way, the lottery is actually quite like a business. That leaves about 29 cents on the dollar for profit. And by law, the lottery deposits that profit to the state lottery proceeds fund. And the law states that the General Assembly is to use all lottery profits for educational purposes, K through 12. And the lottery does not control how its profits are spent. Now, last year, fiscal year 2021, the lottery generated more than $766 million in profits, which, as I said, by law is used by the state for education. The total education budget in Virginia is about 10 times that amount, more than $7 billion. So lottery proceeds are just one part of the overall budget of the pie. In Virginia, it ends up being about 10% of what Virginia spends on education. Now, here's a breakdown of around what you see around there is a breakdown of some of the programs funded with lottery money. Again, the lottery doesn't have any say in how those profits are spent. About 2/3 lottery proceeds go to those programs that you see there. And about 1/3, the remaining 1/3 of lottery proceeds goes directly to the school districts across the state. Now, I want to talk to you about the lottery's Play Responsibly campaign because, frankly, I'm pretty proud of it. And as you all know, most people can play games of chance without any ill effects. But for some people, gambling of any sort, whether it's the lottery or anything else, can be addictive and very damaging. And of course, Dr. Hawley will talk more about problem gambling in a few moments. But I did want to touch on a few things. The lottery is committed to responsible play and presenting all lottery games and products ethically and responsibly. And that's an important commitment. What does it look like? Well, most importantly, we work to raise awareness of problem gambling. We're not addictions experts at the lottery, but what we do have is a big megaphone. So the lottery is high profile and we can help get the word out. So we encourage people to play responsibly. Also, the Virginia problem gambling helpline number is printed on every lottery ticket and our marketing materials. We produce public service announcements for TV and radio like this.
Do you know the face of someone with a gambling problem? It could be your friend, a coworker, a family member, or maybe even you. Not everyone has a problem with gambling, but do you know what problem gambling looks like?
It looks like
Anyone.
If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call 1-888-532-3500. It's free and confidential. Brought to you by the Virginia Lottery and Virginia Council on Problem Gambling.
Now, that was produced in-house. The lottery also produces informational brochures. We have a digital campaign and utilize popular social media platforms. There's a Play Responsibly webpage with resources. We work to educate and train lottery employees and the retailers who sell lottery games, because of course, in some cases, when we're talking about problem gambling, they might be the first person, the first touch point that person has. And of course, the lottery funds the Virginia Problem Gambling Helpline. One of the things, since it's this time of year, I want to tell you about is the National Holiday Campaign to remind people not to give tickets as gifts to minors. You have to be 18 or older to play the lottery in Virginia. And in fact, it's a crime in Virginia to give a lottery ticket to anyone younger than 18. It's also against the law for a store to sell a ticket to a minor or redeem a winning ticket presented by anyone younger than 18, even if an adult is standing right there. A lot of people don't realize that lottery tickets are an age-restricted product. So we work to raise awareness of that. Here's a radio public service announcement we produced in-house that's run during the holidays. Hopefully you'll be hearing it soon.
Hello, Scrooge here. To many, I'm known as a cold-hearted, miserly crank. And this holiday season is no different. When it comes to giving lottery games as gifts to minors, I say, bah, humbug. 'Tis the season of giving, but only if you're 18 years of age or older. So please think twice and cross the kids off your lottery list.
This holiday season, the Virginia Lottery reminds you to gift responsibly. Lottery games are not for minors.
Take it from me, Scrooge. Sometimes it's okay to be
And hopefully
stingy.
you'll be hearing that on the radio this holiday season. So moving on, as you know, the gambling environment in Virginia has been going through some big changes. One very big change is the legalization of sports betting in the Commonwealth. You've probably seen the advertising by sports books. Legal sports betting began in Virginia in January, and it's become wildly popular. Through the end of September, there was nearly $2 billion in sports wagers made in Virginia. Now, I'm going to give you a brief sketch of sports betting. The lottery's involvement by law is to license and regulate all aspects of sports wagering. When someone places a sports wager in Virginia, they're placing it with a permit holder licensed by the lottery. Now, here's some other basics about that. You have to be 21 years or older to place a bet. You must be physically located in Virginia. Now, at this time, sports betting is mobile online only in Virginia. There's no physical place you can go to place a sports bet yet. There will be retailer sports betting at casinos later on. Betting is permitted on most major league and college sports, but not games featuring Virginia college or university teams. There are currently 10 approved permit holders. Those are the companies that you've probably seen advertising. There are consumer protections, like operators must use identity and geolocation technology to verify age and location. Operators must demonstrate a commitment to responsible gaming and a history of working to prevent compulsive gambling, including training programs for employees. Now, these permit holders, they pay a 15% tax to the Commonwealth based on the total wagers they get minus their winnings and their authorized deductions. So of that 15%, most of it, 97.5, goes to the state's general fund. And the remaining 2.5% goes to the Problem Gambling Treatment and Support Fund, which is administered by the Virginia Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services. The lottery also has a casino and sports betting microsite, which is part of the Virginia Lottery's website, and it's got all sorts of information and news about sports betting. So that is a really good place to go if you have questions. Now, Virginia's expansion of gambling also includes the legalization of casinos. For years, we've seen neighboring states build casinos just across the state line in order to attract gamblers from Virginia to go there, to spend their money there, not just on gambling, but also staying in hotels or going to restaurants in that neighboring state. So with the legislation passed by the General Assembly, casinos will be coming to Virginia. Now, 4 localities are identified and approved by the local voters. Those are Bristol, Danville, Norfolk, and Portsmouth. Now, a 5th location was in the original legislation. That was in Richmond. But as you may know, just a couple of weeks ago, Richmond voters rejected the proposals. So now it's just those 4 approved locations: Bristol, Danville, Norfolk, and Portsmouth. Now, the lottery licenses and regulates all the parties involved in casino gambling. The lottery doesn't operate the casinos, but it licenses and regulates all the parties. You do have to be 21 years of age or older. All employees and vendors go through strict security and background checks. Applications for casino licenses were made available in April of 2021. The lottery performs a comprehensive background investigation for all applications that are submitted. Now, I'm not going to go through all the legalities and approvals regarding casino regulations. They are incredibly complex and detailed, 300 plus pages. And just to give you an idea of how detailed the casino regulations are, they even specify the size of the dice used at casinos. So bottom line, at this moment, there are no casinos in Virginia, but there will be, so stay tuned. And finally, I want to talk about the Virginia's voluntary exclusion program. It gives people the ability to, in effect, ban themselves from certain forms of gambling, not all forms of gambling. But it is a tool that people can use if they think they may have a problem. People can sign up for periods of 2 years, 5 years, or a lifetime. And since this began in Virginia, we've had 48 people sign up for the period of 2 years. This is as of last week, 87 for 5 years, and none for life. That's a total of 135 people. And once you sign up, you can't change your mind and get off the list. And just to drill down a little deeper on this list, of the 48 people who signed up for 2 years, 31 are male and 17 are female. And of the 87 who signed up for 5-year periods, 62 are male and 25 are female. Now, in addition to the self-exclusion program, when someone plays Virginia lottery games online, they have the option to exclude themselves from that form of gaming. It's not the same thing as the voluntary exclusion program, but it is a tool that can be used. For more information about the voluntary exclusion program, there's the address down at the bottom on the Virginia Lottery website. If you want to go there, you can get more answer questions that you may have. And that's also where someone can go to voluntarily exclude. And so that is all I have. I'm going to hand it back over to you, Anne.
Thank you very much, John. And so we'll move over to Dr. Carolyn Hawley, last but not least.
And I'm going to talk really fast. Hello, everyone. I'm Carolyn Hawley. I'm president of the Virginia Council on Problem Gambling. I'm on the national board for the National Council on Problem Gambling. I'm also an associate professor in the Department of Rehabilitation and Mental Health Counseling at Virginia Commonwealth University. And I see several of our alumni on this Zoom call, so thank you. I always love seeing you. And today, in our really short time together, I'm going to give you an overview of who we are at the Virginia Council and what we do, as well as briefly touch on what gambling disorder is, and a simple screening tools that you all can use to help assess for gambling. So the Virginia Council on Problem Gambling is a not-for-profit organization that is the state affiliate of the National Council on Problem Gambling. And the National Council is the lead advocacy organization in the United States, if not the world, on problem gambling. And it was founded in 1972 by Monsignor Joseph A. Dunn, who was a former chaplain in the New York Police Department. And he was somebody who was in recovery also for an alcohol use disorder, as well as a gambling use disorder. and by Dr. Robert Custer. And Dr. Robert Custer worked at the VA hospital in Ohio, and he started the first gambling treatment center, which still exists today. And this was formed during a time when problem gambling was really considered a moral issue. However, he discussed it as an issue to relieve psychological pain. That for individuals without problems, gambling is a social and a fun activity, but for problem gamblers, it's very different. It's isolating and it's no longer enjoyable. Now, currently, the National Council on Problem Gambling has 35 state affiliates, of which we are one. And these chapters, they vary in their funding and their activities, from providing advocacy to directly providing treatment services. But for a long time, and especially initially, they were and have been the only entities providing support to gamblers, as there's no federally dedicated funds for gambling disorder. So up until recently, with the expansion of gambling throughout our states, these affiliates have been funded primarily by the gambling industry. Now, the history of gambling treatment, also coming out of our Veterans Hospital, is also interesting in that many people do not realize that our overseas military bases have slot machines. And the Department of Defense annually makes over $100 million in profits from these machines. Our service members also only have to be 18 versus 21 years of age to play these slot machines. So we do see higher rates of problematic use among our service members. They're bored, they're lonely, and this is a way to simply kill time. So our mission at the Virginia Council is to increase public awareness about gambling disorder, assist with an expansion and treatment for gambling disorder, as well as encourage research, prevention, and education. I will say that part of our mission, as well as our being a part of the National Council on Problem Gambling, is we are neutral on gambling, particularly legalized gambling. So how do we help those with a gambling problem? Well, first, in prevention work, and some of the ways that we assist with prevention is with responsible gambling practices to gaming organizations, as well as youth prevention. We really want to stop problems before they start. We work very closely with the lottery, as John has mentioned, as well as with charitable gaming and other gambling operators to exist and start providing support for their responsible gambling practices. We do statewide presentation and conferences, encouraging people how to screen for problem gambling. We do trainings for counselors, how to treat problem gambling. And one of the things that we do is we manage the state problem gambling helpline. Now, we've been doing this since 2017. John thankfully also put up the number for us. And this is a 24/7-hour confidential service. Any Virginian can call the helpline. We often get individuals as well, students calling for their homework assignments or on a project, various professionals just interested to learn more. So anyone can call this number so long as you are a Virginian. Now, we are staffed by trained counselors. So these are typically individuals who have a master's degree in counseling or social work. And for our callers, when they call this helpline, we really want to work and build rapport with this individual initially to make them comfortable. Now, we do have an extensive intake form that we try to get through. That doesn't always happen. We go where the caller takes us. And we hope to provide many options for services for a caller, from online support groups, apps, outpatient treatment, peer support, etc. And we will do a warm transfer to another organization if possible. Additionally, one of the things that I'm very proud of is we do follow-ups with our callers, and we ask permission to be able to do that. So when I talk about that huge intake form, obviously we're collecting information in regards to demographics. We also look at gambling behaviors. So what is the type of gambling, the frequency, when it became an issue, that individuals perceived reasons for gambling. We're also looking at symptoms as well. So we do this with a DSM criteria screen, financial issues and debts related to gambling. We also ask about legal issues related to gambling, as well as comorbidity. We see extremely high rates of alcohol and substance use disorder, as well as other mental health conditions that co-occur with gambling disorder. Along with this, we look at family history as well. Of course, we're asking about safety concerns. People may not realize that gambling disorder has one of the highest rates of suicide. We also, as I mentioned, we're here to provide services, and we'll ask individuals if we can do that and gauge their response. And with our follow-up, as I mentioned before, we do ask permission, and we will check in with people if they give us permission at 48 hours, 1 week, 1 month, 3 months, and 6 months. And I will say people really rely on these follow-up services, particularly in a state like Virginia, where help resources have been limited. Callers will tell us how they help provide accountability for them, as well as show them that someone really cares. So the full range of services that we can help provide is telephone crisis counseling. We do text and chat as well. We'll send out information and educational mailings about gambling disorder and self-help, support group referrals, initial diagnostic consults, referrals to individual counseling, and we're really working to enhance the capacity of treatment providers to work with this population. We are doing weekly wellness support meetings online. This was started during COVID because so many resources were put on hold. This was something that was meant initially to be temporary, but we've had such a great response to this. This is ongoing, which is wonderful. And as I mentioned, follow-up calls. Quickly, I thought you'd probably want to know some of the demographics of our callers. When we look at gender, predominantly what we find is callers identify as male 66%, and 34% of our callers identify as female. Gambling disorder has historically, we've seen more male than women, but the numbers they're catching up. And who is calling? 74% of our callers is the actual gambler themselves. We have about 6% being a spouse or intimate partner, and about 20% being another family member or a friend. Our helpline trends. On general, we have about 100 calls that we answer per month. Of these, on average, there's 60 new intakes that we've started to have. When we took over the helpline in 2017, the average number was about 17 intakes per month. So as gambling's expanded in this state, additionally, with the expansion of gambling, we've also seen much more promotion of the helpline. We've seen our numbers grow. And thank you, Anne, for putting together this beautiful graph. Love it. And it may not make sense to you all as to where spikes happen, but when I talk about promotion and awareness of the helpline, how important this is, we always see a spike in March. And the reason being is March is Problem Gambling Awareness Month. And we work really closely with the lottery, with awareness campaigns about the helpline. And not surprisingly, that's when we get our highest number of calls. We tend to dip in the summer, and then our number starts to go up again in the fall when we start seeing football and basketball emerge. So there might be that coincidence there as well with some sports betting. Now, as for types of play, in regards to frequency, what our callers are reporting for this year, the highest number are playing slot machines at casinos, followed by skill-based machines, which are essentially slot machines, dare I say that, but in other venues. And even though we know that these skill machines, they're currently sitting in facilities and are unplugged, I can tell you at the helpline, we know callers are reporting that they're still playing machines, that they're plugged in. And obviously our numbers are reflecting that. And the next greatest form of play is sports betting. So it's really taken off. As John was mentioning, commercials, you cannot sit and watch TV without finding one, or at least it's challenging, right? But the good note is we're getting free advertisement in those commercials. So I do appreciate that. So quickly, how do we recognize a gambling disorder? What are the signs? Well, when we look at the definition from the American Psychiatric Association and the diagnostic criteria that's provided, it's a persistent and reoccurrent problematic gambling behavior leading to clinically significant impairment or distress, as indicated by an individual exhibiting 4 of the following 9 criteria in a 12-month period. There used to be in the DSM-4, there used to be 10, but they took out committed illegal acts because they found that that wasn't a very consistent criteria. It tends to be related to chronicity. We tend to see people committing illegal acts related to their gambling later in the progression of the disorder. So the first being needs to gamble with increasing amounts of money in order to achieve the same excitement. So this is about tolerance, spending more money to achieve that same high. What they don't mention in this criteria, and I think it's really important, is also time. Is the person spending more and more time? As with drug tolerance, the individual requires larger and more frequent wagers to experience that same rush. And you will see people trying to stretch their money over a longer period of time, or they'll use gambling apps. And this is also how convenient gambling is, which can be a little different from substance use disorder. Our next criteria is restless or irritable when attempting to cut down or stop. And this criteria is about withdrawal. Now, people often don't say they're irritable when they're irritable. So it may be helpful to ask if they're anxious or antsy when trying to stop gambling. And gamblers will also report insomnia, chills, headaches, shaking, sweats when trying to quit or cut back. And now these first 2 criteria, tolerance and withdrawal, are really important features in that they suggest the presence of common neurobiological processes associated with neuroadaptation. So we know with these 2 criteria, physical dependence is occurring. Number 3, has made repeated unsuccessful efforts to control, cut back, or stop gambling. So the person keeps trying to reduce gambling without success. Number 4 is often preoccupied with gambling. So gambling is frequently on the person's mind, both reliving past gambling experiences and planning future gambling events. And instead of using the word preoccupied, you can ask, are you thinking about it a lot? Does it pop up often? And you can see this with horse racing or various types of sports betting, where an individual will have more of this preoccupation, perhaps on a weekend when these events are taking place, than other days of the week when it's not occurring. Number 5, often gambles when feeling distressed. So gambling not only causes distress and anxiety, but it's also used to buffer those feelings. The individual gambles to improve their mood or escape problems. And this happens at least while this person is gambling. And once the individual stops, the distress resumes, particularly when they're experiencing mounting losses and more debt. Number 6, after losing money, gambling often returns another day to get even. And we call this chasing one's losses. And this is the one criteria that's unique to gambling, in that people will use the gambling to try and solve the problems resulting from their gambling. We had a caller who was living in his car, except on the weekends when he went up to the casino in Maryland. And at that point, he was comped a room, he was comped meals, so he could sleep, he could shower. He was really dependent on the casino to provide wellness to him. Number 7, lies to conceal the extent of involvement with gambling. Lies, this is also unique. You don't see this in any other criteria. However, when talking with someone, it may be better to ask if you hide your gambling. It has less of a strong connotation than lying. People will often bristle at the word lying, but they'll acknowledge hiding it. And 8, it's have you jeopardized or lost significant relationships, jobs, or educational opportunities. 9, relies on others to provide money to relieve desperate financial situations caused by gambling. Okay, briefly looking at our statistics today, what we find, the prevalence rates range from 0.4% to 4% for a gambling disorder. We also see rates of around 2 to 3% for people who we call problem gamblers. These are individuals who have 1, 2, or 3 of these criteria, but they don't meet 4. Prevalence rates among youth are much higher than those. We also see higher rates among men, but like I said, women are catching up, and women also have a telescoped course, meaning that women will progress to having a gambling disorder quicker, sometimes in less than 6 months. And this also may be related to the forms of play that we see women use. Women often use slot machines versus other forms of gambling. And non-white individuals, particularly African Americans, are at greater risk. If we look at the topology of gambling, we also see no gambling to gambling disorder. And gambling disorder was once thought to be progressive and deteriorating. However, recent studies show that similar to substance use disorder, there can be spontaneous remitting and improvement. So not all people will progress to dangerous levels. And a lot of people may meet criteria for gambling disorder at one point in their life and then never again. So now to the end here with our problem gambling screens. And as I mentioned, all of you can use these. And during Problem Gambling Awareness Month, you'll see tons of screens out there. Here are some of the most popular. The first being South Oaks Gambling Screen. And you can screen for lifetime or more recent gambling, and it delineates the type of gambling, which is important. People have favorite forms of gambling, and we need to know what type because it's going to dictate how we address treatment. However, this is a longer screening form, but it provides helpful information. The next instrument is the Lie Bet Questionnaire, and this is probably the most popular because it's simple. There's only 2 items, and they involve lying and tolerance. But this instrument is not well researched, and it does have a high false negative rate, and that's probably related to that question, have you ever lied? As I mentioned before, people don't like to admit that they're lying. The next assessment is also very popular, and I like it. They have 3 simple questions, also dealing with lying, one of them, detox and financial issues, but they get around that directly asking about lying, which I think is clever. So during the past 12 months, have you tried to keep your family or friends from knowing how much you gamble? So people are more receptive to admitting to that. And then finally, I just want to present to you the Gamblers Anonymous 20 questions. It's what you can easily find online. It's free. All of these are free. If you have 7 or more symptoms, you have a problem per Gamblers Anonymous, and research actually does support this. You can pull this up, you can use this with clients. They don't even need to know that it's from Gamblers Anonymous. And what's nice about it is it does a financial inventory within these questions. And we need to understand the anxiety of not cleaning up finances for individuals with a problem. Because if we don't address it, if that's not taken care of, that's going to lead them right back into gambling to do so. And then to end, as I mentioned, for referrals, if you have an individual that you suspect may have a problem, please call us at the helpline. I'll shout out that number again, 888-532-3500. And we will work to direct you towards resources. Okay, and I was speedy.
You are very fast, Dr. Hawley. So we have a ton of questions, and I know I probably should have scheduled more time for this, but if maybe, so there's a couple that I think can sort of be asked at the same time. There is one, okay, there were two questions. One of them that says, are the counselors on the helpline people with lived experience? And then a second question, kind of somewhat related, do the helpline people refer people to CSBs or elsewhere?
So we do have some providers who do have lived experience. We actually are starting to work with the helpline, developing a peer recovery specialist network to better facilitate that. I think that would be a phenomenal improvement in regards to assisting with motivation for people to actually access treatment. And what were the others here?
So it was
the CSBs, the questions.
Yeah.
So in the past, we have not had success. We would love to refer to the CSBs. We've not had success doing that. When we've tried to do so, we've been told that they do not work with gamblers. So as we're moving forward, and especially now that we have this problem gambling treatment fund being run by DBHDS, we presume that that will not be the case in the future, which would be wonderful.
Another question that came was about fantasy sports. Is that considered gaming in Virginia? So I'm not sure who wants to.
And this is Michael. I mean, fantasy sports is not considered gambling under the code, which is regulated by my office. It's considered a game of skill.
Okay. But for people, for CSBs who are doing their environmental scans, we're putting it under even though it's under the gaming department. I'm considering it gambling for the purpose of the environmental scan. But okay, so that's good. So that's underneath that piece. Another question came in, and they wanted to know how long the exclusion program has been in effect for.
I think that would be in my my area. You know, it's fairly new. I can't tell you exactly how long, but I can find out. And I don't know the answer off the top of my head, but I can get back to you on that.
Another question that kind of came was, it says, is smoking allowed in bingo places, and will it be allowed in casinos?
Smoking that's more of the Department of Health question, but based on my understanding that they're not allowed to, because a lot of those bingo halls have food establishments in there, which is what prohibits them to have smoking.
So I guess that would probably carry over to casino then, right, John?
Again, I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head, but I can find out and get back to you on that.
Another question that came in was, is bingo permit an annual permit?
Yes, permits are annual, and by statute, we can authorize it up to about 2 years, but because of the mechanics of it all, we only issue a year's worth.
Okay. And then another question, there's more than this, but do school districts have discretion over how the direct lottery funds are spent?
They do have some discretion. It's not complete. You know, there are guidelines by the state as far as what discretionary money there is. But as for, and remember, we're talking about 1/3 of what that school district received in state funds. Now, all school districts do receive something from out of Virginia lottery profits. The majority of it does go to those programs that I outlined.
Okay. And I'll do one last question. I know we're at time, but do the counselors on the helpline speak Spanish or other languages for for our continued melting pot in different areas of Virginia?
Unfortunately, no. We do use a translation service, so we're able to provide languages. We have, gosh, I think it's 125 different languages that we can work with. However, we also have a problem beyond the helpline in regards to not having treatment professionals who speak other languages as well. So if any of you do, please contact me if you want to work with individuals who have a gambling problem, because we desperately need those individuals.
Well, I want to thank you all for, spending the past hour and a quarter with us and helping to engage and inform. And folks, stay tuned for future webinars and trainings around gaming and gambling and problem gambling. And we appreciate everybody's time to join us. And I put in the chat a link to the evaluation. If you can do that now, great. If not, we'll be sending out the link tomorrow, along with over the next couple of days of where to find the recording for this. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Anne.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Michael.